second to get your notification that we're live. It is so hot in my office. I feel like I'm sweltering like a pat of butter, but so I need like a breeze to come through my window. I'm afraid if I turn my fan on, it'll be way too loud, but I don't have the air conditioner on. So it's just really hot in here. So a couple of things we're going to talk about as titled The Four Clairs, which is going to be really cool because some of you may not even be aware of what those are, but you actually all have the ability to tap into these. And then a lot of times when I go to do these, something pops up, right? And so I always go with that as it's something that somebody somewhere really needs to hear. So we're going to talk about that too. So I'm just giving you a second so you can hop on so I can see everybody getting on here. Love it if you say hello and where you're from, even if you're doing the replay. Just as a reminder, I go live on Mondays at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, and I just talk about something that's really beneficial for you that I would normally work on with like a client, but that you can use it to help you out. So, okay, let's go. Let's roll with it. Like I said, it's super hot, so I feel like I'm like at the gym. Okay, first thing, I'm going to share this with you because somebody somewhere needs to hear it, and that's the cool thing about this kind of stuff. So, we're going to talk about mimicking emotions before we jump into the four clairs. So, mimicking emotions, what does that mean? So, there are people out there, and I'm not going to diagnose them with a specific label because I think that labels are exactly that, they're labels. But there are certain people that do not actually feel certain emotions. So, they're not going to feel guilt. They're not going to feel empathy. They're not going to feel remorse, but they have very much mastered the ability to mimic those exact emotions. So you think that they're feeling guilty. You think that they're feeling remorseful. You think that they're feeling empathy for something that they've done or for another person, when the reality is they're actually just mimicking the emotion. So they're masters at deception and repeaters of their process. And when I went to figure out what I wanted to talk about today, and I was going to talk about the four clairs initially, this is something that popped up for me. And so I always go with that because one of you somewhere needs to hear that. You need that reassurance because it's really tough to be in that situation. When you have someone telling you, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. I feel so bad for what I did. But then it's like the next day, right? Their actions don't follow what they're saying. And then it's confusing to you because you're like, are you really sorry for what you did? Because you're not acting like you feel sorry for what you did. You're saying it, but they're mimicking. They know what it's supposed to look like. And so that's what they do in order to manipulate you into, allowing them to continue their behaviors. Okay, so we're going to jump into the four clairs. These are really cool. And as I tell you what they are, I want you to not get into the space where you're like, oh, that's never happened for me. Okay. You have the ability to have all four of these. And there's actually more than even the four that I'm going to teach you about. You just have to align yourself with intention that you want to develop them, and then be mindful about paying attention to when they happen without getting into a space where you're almost creating resistance because you want to see it so bad that you actually prevent yourself from being able to see or more or less feel what these are. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is clairvoyance. This is when and these are all like intuitive things. So this is when you receive an answer or an impression and it actually sounds like a voice in your head. So now obviously I can only talk to how I get these. So I'm going to tell you how it comes for me, but for you, it's not going to be exactly the same. So mine is a voice in my mind that's just as though I'm having a conversation with myself. So if I were to intentionally speak to myself, not out loud, it would be the same sound that I would hear. So that's what mine is for me. But other people sometimes hear them as a different voice. Sometimes it comes as this sound, and it's just like hearing the number 35 or hearing a word water. Okay. If you've worked with me before, you've been one of my clients, sometimes I'll say that I am getting water. I'm getting a feather. I'm getting the color of blue, and it looks like a jacket. Okay. And so that's what that is. So it's coming as like a voice. I hear it. So that's the first one. The second one is called clairvoyance. So this is an image or a scene in your mind. So you're going to get an image of something like a red truck, a toy, something just kind of pops up, or you may start running a scene. So when I do past life regressions, that's how it comes to me. It looks like a movie. So when I go with intention to look at someone's past life regression, now I love this subject because especially coming through the community that I grew up in, people are like, well, I don't believe in a past life. So is the way that I explain that to you is if you don't believe in a past life, then perhaps the past life regression that you're pulling through is going to be that you were a spirit guide for someone before you came into your present body, maybe a spirit guide for an ancestor. You were leading or helping someone on the other side, and the stuff that you were helping them through is what you witnessed. And for some reason, it still has a connection to you that's causing you an issue now in your present space. Okay, so those are images or scenes in your mind. That's how I view when I do past life regressions. I can see it almost like a movie, metaphorically. So stuff is not always exactly what you get as far as what you're pulling in. So you could get an image of someone fishing, and they're fishing, and there's just thousands of fish in the water. Okay, so that's a metaphor for something, and you kind of use then your questioning of like, what am I seeing? Kind of going back to the clairaudience of asking yourself questions. Do the fish mean, are the fish representative of what? And then I kind of just like sit with myself. Oh, opportunities. The fish are all the opportunities that are around you right now. And then I'll maybe I see a storm. Okay, what is the storm representing? So that's kind of how it is. It's metaphorically, kind of like when you're dreaming or you watch a movie where someone's having a dream and it actually has a meaning to it, is what that one is. Okay, then we have our Claire. This one I like to just call it, this is your gut instinct. That's the easiest way to remember this one. Clairsentience is from your spleen center. It is coming from the space of survival. So our fight or flight, that initial reaction of what we should do. And so when I teach my human design course, some of you actually have your spleen center as your authority. So that's where when you ask a question, you're trying to figure out a decision, that's where it's coming from. And you just get that gut instinct, and you need to listen to it because it only comes once. The spleen center does not repeat itself. So once you get that initial impression, you need to listen, because after that, it goes away. This is the people that we say like, ooh, I can read the emotions of others when I get into a room. I can feel, or when I'm, talking to someone, I meet somebody, like I can feel their energy. I can feel their emotions. I can feel, all that they're going through. That's that one. Or if you walk into a room, you can feel the energy of the room, right? You know if it's positive, you know if it's negative. And if it's negative, you're going to get the like, hey, turn around and run. And you should listen to yourself because it's your internal GPS leading you. Okay. Claircognizance is the last one that I'm going to tell you about. So this is knowing. It's almost like you download an answer. So let's say, for example, let's say that I have just tons of tasks that I need to get done. And it's super important. And I'm really struggling with trying to figure out like which things I need to get done first and which order should I do these. So if I sit with myself for a minute after I ask that question, I can actually get a download, and I will know this is the order in which these should be done. Okay. And so it's kind of like computer downloading, like you plug it in and you're just going to get an answer. You just know what you should do. There is not a question of doubt. So now, Amy, how do I develop these? How do I develop these things so that it comes to me? So first of all, I want to remind you, these are not gifts. Okay. These are something that everybody has the ability to tap into. In fact, it is your divine right to be able to tap into these. It's all about just learning how to use them. Now, I believe that some of us are just more sensitive to being able to use them than others, but it's not that I'm more gifted than someone else. Okay. So there are lots of little exercises you can do. In fact, if you go to Soul Centered Academy, I have a whole course on learning how to channel. But the first thing that I will tell you, if you want to start working on these, is relax your ability, because the number one rule with learning to use these is to not try. So whenever we go to do it, we're like, ooh, I want to be able to see this, hear this, get this impression. And so then we try too hard, right? And so we miss it. These are really very subtle, especially if you haven't been listening to them or using them. They're very quiet and they're very subtle. So it is doing something. The way that I like to do it that's the easiest for me is have someone else ask you a question. So if there's something that you're working on, have someone else ask you a question. And then it allows you to hear the question. And then I want you to see how you respond to the question right away. Okay. So kind of clear your mind, then have someone ask you, do you want to go to school? Like, let's say you're going to go to school and you're trying to decide what, you want to major in. And someone says, okay, so do you want to major in education? You're going to just kind of sit with yourself and see what you hear, see what you feel, see what you get, what image do you see? And then don't question what you're seeing. When I was working on a client yesterday, I kind of was just going through and I was typing as I was seeing everything. And then for a split second, it kind of hit me and I was like, why is this so easy for me? And the initial reaction or the initial answer that, came was, I don't question any of it. I don't question. So, if I'm working on a client and I get an issue in their right kneecap and suddenly the next thing I see is the hypothalamus, I don't ever question that. I don't say, what the heck does the right kneecap have to do with the hypothalamus? I don't question if I initially see blue as a imbalanced color. I won't ask myself, "Ooh, is it really blue or is it yellow?" Like that's where we get into that space, right? I saw blue. Blue is it. Like I don't then say, oh, was it supposed to be yellow? Because that's your ego coming in. That's what your ego is. And I'm not talking ego like I think I'm better than everyone else. Ego is your cognitive mind coming into play. It's just what it does. So the more you quiet down that, like, wait, why? Wait, is that really it? Right? That's what we do. Oh, is that really what I want to do? It's that questioning thing. You got to shut that down because these things come through and they are the first thing you see, hear, imagine, whatever it is, before your cognitive brain has a chance to grab a hold of that impression and start making sense of it. So a lot of times when you see things, it isn't going to make sense. It was one of the things that I learned when I first started working with clients. And if you're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I know I have some of these things. Oh, by the way, my ELF system will teach you how to use them. So I learned not to keep things from my clients. So if I see something as crazy as it is, I tell my client, I see a park, I see a bulletin board with papers on it. It doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense to them. And then they're like, I know what that is. That's a family reunion that I went to. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're going to clear some stuff around the family reunion. And they always know right away, what the problem usually is if you can get them connected to it. And sometimes they can't remember, and that's okay because they don't need to. You're using the subconscious to get the answers that you need. Okay, there you go, guys. So that's what I'm going to leave you with tonight. And I hope you're having a beautiful Monday. And I'm just sending you lots of amazing, fantastic, positive vibrational energy for the rest of your week. Oh, really quick too, I'm going to add, I opened my schedule back up. So I am now doing sessions. Before I was only doing email sessions. So it is now opened back up. You can get sessions, still a little bit limited availability. They're in afternoons, Mountain Standard Time during the week. My weekends are still not open yet until after summer, but I just wanted to let you know that as well. Okay, there you go. All right. Have a beautiful rest of your day.